Ariel Castro was born on the 10th of July, 1960 in Dewey, Yauco, Puerto Rico to Pedro Castro and Lillian Rodriguez, who divorced when he was still a child. His mother took him and his 3 siblings to America. The family first lived in Exton, Pennsylvania, before settling in Cleveland, Ohio, where Castro's father and several other family members were living. Castro had 9 siblings in total, including half-siblings. He graduated from Cleveland's Lincoln West High School when he was 19 years old. Castro met his girlfriend, Grimilda Figueroa, when his family moved into a house across the street from hers in the 1980s. Castro and Figueroa lived with both sets of their parents until they moved into their own home at 2207 Seymour Avenue, located in Cleveland's Tremont neighborhood. Their home was a 2-story, 1,400 square foot, 130 square meters for bedroom, 1-bathroom house with a 760 square foot, 71 square meters. Unfinished basement built in 1890 and remodeled in 1956. They had 4 children together. According to Figueroa's sister, Elida Caraballo, she said that all hell started breaking loose after the couple moved into their new home. Caraballo claimed that Castro beat Figueroa by breaking her nose, ribs, and arms and causing a blood clot on her brain that resulted in an inoperable tumor. He also threw her down a flight of stairs, cracking her skull. In 1993, Castro was arrested for domestic violence, but was not indicted by a grand jury. In 1996, Figueroa moved out of the house and secured custody of their 4 children. Police assisted in the move and detained Castro, but they did not press charges. Castro continued to threaten and attack Figueroa after she left him. Figueroa filed charges in 2005 in Cuyahoga County Domestic Relations Court, which accused Castro of inflicting multiple severe injuries on her and of frequently abducting their daughters. The court granted her a temporary restraining order against Castro, but it was dismissed a few months later. Figueroa died in 2012 due to complications from her brain tumor. Friends and relatives gathered on Denison Avenue on April 29, 2012, for memorial services in her honor. Castro worked as a bus driver for the Cleveland Metropolitan School District until he was fired in November 2012 for bad judgment, including making an illegal U-turn with infants and toddlers on his bus, using his bus to go grocery shopping, leaving a child on the bus while he went for lunch at Wendy's, and leaving the bus unattended while he took a nap at home. He was earning $18.91 per hour when he was discharged. Michelle Knight, born April 23, 1981, disappeared on August 23, 2002, after leaving a cousin's house. She was 21 years old at the time. On the day of her disappearance, she was scheduled to appear in court for a child custody case involving her son Joey, who was in the custody of the state. Following Knight's rescue, police acknowledged that limited resources had been spent on investigating her disappearance, in part because she was an adult. Authorities believed that she had run away voluntarily due to anger over losing custody of her son. According to Cleveland Deputy Police Chief Ed Tomba, she was the focus of very few tips. Some criticized her subsequent removal from the National Crime Information Center database 15 months after she disappeared, which made her largely unknown prior to her rescue. The Cleveland Division of Police, CDP, and the Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI, maintained that her inclusion or exclusion had no bearing on her rescue. Amanda Marie Berry, born April 22, 1986, disappeared on April 21, 2003, the day before her 17th birthday. She was last heard from around 8 p.m. when she called her sister to tell her that she was getting a ride home from her job at a Burger King at the corner of Lorraine Avenue and West 110th Street. The FBI initially considered her a runaway, until a week after her disappearance, when an unidentified male used her cell phone to call her mother. He said, "I have Amanda. She's fine and will be coming home in a couple of days." Berry was featured in a 2004 segment of Fox's America's Most Wanted, re-aired in 2005 and 2006, which linked her to Gina DeJesus, who by that point had also gone missing in Cleveland. Barry and DeJesus were profiled on The Oprah Winfrey Show and The Montel Williams Show, where self-proclaimed psychic Sylvia Brown told Barry's mother LaWanna Miller in November 2004 that her daughter was dead and that she was in water. This pronouncement devastated her mother, causing her to take down pictures and give away Barry's computer. However, Miller continued to search for Barry before dying from heart failure in early March 2006. Georgina Lynn DeJesus, born February 13, 1990, went missing on April 2, 2004, at age 14. She was last seen at a payphone around 3 p.m. while on the way home from her middle school at West 105th Street and Lorraine Avenue. At the time, she was friends with Castro's daughter Arlene. Shortly before Gina disappeared, she and Arlene had called Arlene's mother, Gramilda Figueroa, for permission to have a sleepover at DeJesus's house, but Figueroa replied that they could not, and the two girls parted ways. Arlene was the last person to see DeJesus before her disappearance. DeJesus was under the impression that Castro was picking her up to drop her off at home, and she trusted Castro because she was friends with his teenage daughter. No one witnessed her abduction, and an Amber Alert was not issued, which angered her father. A year after DeJesus's disappearance, the FBI released a composite sketch and description of a male suspect, described as Latino, 25 to 35 years of age, 5 feet 10 inches, 75 to 84 kilograms, with green eyes, a goatee, and possibly a pencil-thin beard. According to court records, Castro was 5 feet 7 inches, 81 kilograms, with brown eyes and a goatee. DeJesus was featured in the America's Most Wanted segment, which linked her to Barry. The disappearances received regular media attention into 2012, while the families held public vigils. Castro attended at least 2 of these vigils, reportedly participated in a search party, and tried to get close to the DeJesus family. Castro's son Anthony was a journalism student in 2004, and he interviewed DeJesus's mother for an article about the disappearances in the Plain Press newspaper. Police kept the investigation open and offered a $25,000 reward for information. Castro kidnapped his victims by offering them a ride. He drove each to his home at 2207 Seymour Avenue, lured them inside, took them to the basement, and restrained them. Upon being kidnapped, Castro took Michelle Knight to the upper floor of his house, tied her hands and feet together, and pulled her up using her hands, feet, and neck. He left her there for 3 days without food. Prosecutors at Castro's sentencing wrote that diaries kept by his victims speak of forced sexual conduct, being locked in a dark room, anticipating the next session of abuse, dreams of someday escaping and being reunited with family. Being chained to a wall, being held like a prisoner of war, missing the lives they once enjoyed, emotional abuse, Castro's threats to kill them, being treated like an animal, continuous abuse, and desiring freedom. The women were kept in locked bedrooms, where they were forced to use plastic toilets that were emptied infrequently. They were fed 1 meal a day and allowed to shower twice a week at most. Knight told police that Castro had impregnated her at least 5 times and had induced miscarriages each time through beatings, hitting her with dumbbells, punching her, and slamming her against walls. He also starved her. Knight's grandmother told reporters that she would require facial reconstruction surgery due to the beatings that she endured, and had lost hearing in one ear. At one point, Knight had a pet dog while in captivity, but Castro killed it by snapping its neck after it bit him while trying to protect Knight. DeJesus told law enforcement that she was raped, but did not believe that she was ever impregnated. On Christmas Day 2006, Castro allegedly ordered Knight to assist in the birth of Barry's child, which took place in a small inflatable swimming pool, and threatened to kill her if the baby did not survive. Later that year, on December 25, 2006, Barry gave birth to a daughter. DNA evidence has confirmed that Castro was the father of the child. At one point, the baby stopped breathing, but Knight was able to resuscitate her. Castro occasionally took Barry's daughter out of the house, including to visit his mother. She called him Daddy and Castro's mother grandmother. In 2013, He showed one of his adult daughters a picture of the child and said that she was his girlfriend's daughter from a previous relationship. He had told others that she was his granddaughter. Barry taught her daughter how to read and write. Neighbors have said that they called the police about suspicious activity observed at the home, but police claim that they have no record of any such calls. Castro's son Anthony reported that there were certain areas of the house that were locked and inaccessible. He also mentioned an occasion 3 weeks before the women's escape when Castro asked him if Barry would ever be found. Anthony said that he told Castro that Barry was likely dead, to which Castro responded, "Really? You think so?" Castro said the kidnaps were not planned crimes of opportunity and he believed that he would eventually be caught. Police found a suicide note in the house in which he discussed the abductions and wrote that his money and possessions should be given to the kidnapped women if he were caught. On the morning of May 6, 2013, Barry was finally able to make contact with Castro's neighbors, leading to her escape with her 6-year-old daughter and the rescue of DeJesus and Knight by authorities. According to police, Castro had left the house that day, and Barry realized that he had failed to lock the big inside door, although the exterior storm door was bolted. She did not attempt to break through the outer door because she thought that Castro was testing her, according to the police report. Previously, Castro had tested the women by leaving the house partially unlocked and exits unsecured. If they attempted to escape, he beat them. Instead, Barry screamed for help when she saw neighbors through the screen. He said he was a cool guy and there wasn't anything weird about him. He was a normal guy. Charles Ramsey, Ariel's neighbor, said at 3 o'clock in the afternoon he was on his porch and the mailman put Ariel's mail in Mr. Charles's mail. He picked up the mails and a couple of minutes later Ariel pulled up and checked his mails. Charles went up and handed his mails that he had picked from his own box to him. He thanked him and made a comment that the mail people never seemed to get it right. They went their separate ways. Charles jumped on his bike and went down to McDonald's. He came back home, and he was in his living room right by the front door. Then along came a girl screaming as if a child had been hit by a car. The scream made him stop eating and went outside. He saw another guy running across the street, but when he got outside, he saw the girl in Ariel's house shouting for help and saying he had trapped in his house for some time and he wouldn't let her leave. She was also holding a child. The guy panicked and said to Charles it's a girl. Amanda begged them frantically to get her out of the house. Charles wasted no time in helping the lady out of the door, but much as he tried to open the door, he couldn't. It seemed like a torture chamber inside and he couldn't open the door. He got the baby out first. Although the way she dressed didn't look like she was kidnapped. She dressed in a jumpsuit and tank top. He thought she had a boyfriend problem because he knew who lived there. He was 50. Charles had never seen this woman and the baby before. He usually play with 2 little kids in his backyard for a couple of hours and then go back inside almost every day. Charles lived next door and he could see him from his bedroom upstairs. The neighborhood knew them as his grandchildren. He finally helped Amanda. She asked him to call the police immediately. Charles said he was very nervous. He fumbled with his phone and finally got a hold of himself. He also told Amanda to go across the road and call 911. Both of them reported the case at the same time. He told them Amanda Barry was standing right there in front of him, and they asked the usual questions. It suddenly occurs to him that Amanda was the girl who had gone missing before. The little girl was crying and asking for his dad. Charles asked him where his father was, and she said it was Ariel. He was shocked. He realized Ariel kidnapped her and started sleeping with her. She informed him there were more girls, and when police came, they rescued them. A retired police officer once stopped him several years ago. It was a little after 8:30 p.m. June 12, 2008 when the policeman saw a motorbike whizzes past him. He saw that the plate number was tilted to one side. He knew it was criminals' way of hiding their plate number. He pulled him over and began to ask him questions. Castro was nervous. At this time, the abducted ladies were locked up in his house and a child had been born be one of the ladies. "Where's license?" the police officer asked. "What's wrong?" Ariel replied. He explained to him his plate number was out of place and asked if he was hiding something. Although he didn't have a license and plate number didn't belong to the bike, he was allowed to go. Ariel assured him he was a clean school bus driver. He was given 2 tickets and allowed to go. He was 52 when he was arrested. According to Castro's uncle, his family knew the DeJesus family and had lived in the same neighborhood. Castro falsely claimed that he was not aware that DeJesus was a member of that family when he abducted her. Neighbor Angel Cordero responded to the screaming, but was unable to communicate with Barry because he spoke little English. Neighbor Charles Ramsey joined Cordero at the house's front door during the rescue. They kicked a hole through the bottom of the storm door and Barry crawled through, carrying her daughter. Ramsey said that Barry told him that she and her child were being kept inside the house against her will. Upon being freed, she went to the house of another Spanish-speaking neighbor and, with Ramsey's assistance, called 911, saying, "Help me, I've been kidnapped, and I've been missing for 10 years. And I'm here. I'm free now." Responding police officers Anthony Espada, Michael Tracy, and Barbara Johnson entered Castro's house. They walked through an upstairs hallway with guns drawn, announcing themselves as CPD. After peeking out from a slightly open bedroom door, Knight entered the hallway and leaped into an officer's arms, repeatedly saying, "You saved me." Soon afterward, DeJesus entered the hallway from another room. Knight and DeJesus walked out of the house, and all 3 women, plus the child, were taken to Metro Health Medical Center. Barry and DeJesus were released from the hospital the next day, and Knight was discharged 4 days later on May 10th. Castro was arrested in a McDonald's parking lot shortly after the victims were rescued. He was charged with 4 counts of kidnapping and 3 counts of rape on May 8th, which carry prison sentences of 10 years to life in Ohio. 2 of Castro's brothers, Pedro and Anel, were also initially taken into custody, but were released on May 9th after police announced that they had no involvement in the kidnappings. The charges against the 2 brothers were dropped. Castro made his first court appearance at the Cleveland Municipal Court on May 9th, where bail was set at $2 million per kidnapping charge, adding to a total of $8 million. Prosecutors intended to seek the death penalty against Castro. Additional charges were reported to be pending, including aggravated murder for intentional induction of miscarriages, attempted murder, assault, a charge for each instance of rape, and a kidnapping charge for each day each captive was held. On May 14th, Castro's attorney said he would plead not guilty to all charges if indicted for kidnapping and rape. Some of Castro's family members disowned him and denounced his actions and apologized to the victims and their families. He was found guilty on 977 counts, 512 counts of kidnapping, 446 of rape, 7 of gross sexual imposition, 6 of felonious assault, 3 of child endangerment, 2 of aggravated murder, and 1 of possession of criminal tools. Castro pleaded guilty to 937 of the 977 charges against him, including charges of kidnapping, rape, and aggravated murder, as part of a plea bargain which called for consecutive sentences of life in prison plus 1,000 years, all without parole. He also forfeited his assets, including his Seymour Avenue house, which prosecutors said would be demolished. At the sentencing hearing on August 1st, Castro was sentenced to consecutive life terms in prison, plus 1,000 years, all without any possibility of parole. He was also fined $100,000. The court forfeited all of his property and assets to the Cuyahoga County government. Before his sentencing, Castro addressed the court for nearly 20 minutes, in which he said he was a good person and not a monster, but that he was addicted to intimacy and adult movies and had practiced touching himself from a young age. He claimed that he had never beaten or tortured the women, and insisted that most of the encounters he had with them was consensual. He shifted between apologizing and blaming the FBI for failing to catch him, as well as blaming his victims themselves for getting in a car with a stranger, along with insisting to the court that when he was intimate with them, he discovered they were not virgins. He would alternately shift back into apologetic comments, saying, "I hope they can find in their hearts to forgive me because we had a lot of harmony going on in that home." The sentencing judge also heard from Knight and family members of Barry and DeJesus. Knight told Castro, "You took 11 years of my life away. I spent 11 years in hell. Now your hell is just beginning. I will overcome all that has happened, but you will face hell for eternity. I will live on. You will die a little every day as you think of the 11 years of atrocities that you inflicted on us. I can forgive you, but I will never forget." At the time of his arrest, Castro's home was in foreclosure after 3 years of unpaid real estate taxes. Castro's home at 2207 Seymour Avenue. It was demolished on August 7, 2013, as part of Castro's plea bargain. Castro was found hanging from a bedsheet in his detention cell at the Correctional Reception Center in Orient, Ohio, on the evening of September 3, 2013, 1 month into his life sentence. He was 53 at the time of his death. Prison staff performed CPR on him before he was taken to the Ohio State University Wexner Medical Center in Columbus, where he was pronounced dead shortly after. All available evidence pointed to suicide, including a shrine-like arrangement of family pictures and a Bible in Castro's cell. An increasing tone of frustration in his prison journal and the reality of spending the rest of his life in prison while subject to constant harassment. The following day, Franklin County Coroner Jan Gorniak announced that a preliminary autopsy had found the cause of Castro's death to be suicide by hanging. He was later cremated. Isaiah 59 verse 1-8 says, "Behold, the Lord's hand is not shortened, that it cannot save, neither his ear heavy, that it cannot hear. But your iniquities have separated between you and your God, and your sins have hidden his face from you, that he will not hear. For your hands are defiled with blood, and your fingers with iniquity. Your lips have spoken lies, your tongue hath muttered perverseness. None calls for justice, nor any pleads for truth. They trust in vanity, and speak lies. They conceive mischief, and bring forth iniquity. They hatch cockatrice eggs, and weave the spider's web. He that eats of their eggs dies, and that which is crushed breaks out into a viper. Their web shall not become garments, neither shall they cover themselves with their works. Their works are works of iniquity, and the act of violence is in their hands. Their feet run to evil, and they make haste to shed innocent blood. Their thoughts are thoughts of iniquity. Wasting and destruction are in their paths. The way of peace they know not, and there is no judgment in their goings. They have made them crooked paths. Whosoever goes therein shall not know peace." Thank you for staying with us this far. If this is the sort of story you like, subscribe to my channel, click the notification button, and leave your comment. If you have any sentence you would like us to cover, please leave your suggestion in the comment section. Bye.